Steam is home to a vast array of indie horror games, each offering a unique take on terror. With so many new releases coming out regularly, it can be hard to separate the truly scary experiences from the ones that fall flat. In this video, I've played through 10 of the most recently added horror games on Steam to see if any of them can deliver good horror experiences. Now, there are a few exceptions to the 10 most recently added horror games list. I skipped over some titles that were just 2D platformers or visual novels, as I felt they wouldn't be as interesting to review for this particular video. I'll share my overall thoughts and give each game a rating based on how well it executed its ideas and how much I enjoyed the experience. Some games will surprise you with their creativity, while others may leave you questioning how they got to Steam in the first place. Number 1. Creepy Crawling. Creepy Crawling is a game where you play as a patient who is being illegally experimented on in a hospital. Your goal is to find clues and items to try to escape, all the while trying to survive the terrifying environment. The game has a creepy and unsettling atmosphere that keeps you on edge. As you progress through the hospital, the tension builds, making each new discovery feel more unnerving. There's a real sense of being trapped, and the environment is effectively designed to make you feel isolated and desperate. The horror in Creepy Crawling revolves around spiders, and the game does a good job of capitalizing on fear of these creatures. If you're somebody who has a phobia of spiders, this game will definitely get under your skin. However, for players who aren't afraid of spiders, the horror elements may not have as much of an impact. Even if this game doesn't terrify everyone, it still manages to create a decent level of unease. The hospital setting is well done, with dim lighting and eerie sounds that contribute to a feeling of constant dread. The puzzles you solve are mostly straightforward, but they help to deepen the mystery of your character's situation. The sense of progression is rewarding as you slowly uncover more about the experiments happening in the hospital. One of the most interesting aspects of Creepy Crawling is its story. It's clear that this game is trying to build a larger narrative about the unethical medical practices going on within the hospital, but the execution feels a little bit incomplete. The dialogue and character interactions are minimal, and it's mostly up to the player to piece together the story. While this leaves some room for imagination, it also makes the game feel a little bit disjointed at times. Overall, Creepy Crawling is a solid horror game that delivers a creepy experience. The spider theme might be a deal breaker for some, but if you can get past that, there's a lot to enjoy. It's not a perfect game, but its atmosphere and tension-filled moments make it worth checking out. Number 2. Neapolitan Hotel. Neapolitan Hotel is a game that tries to emulate the anomaly horror genre, similar to games like Exit 8 and The Lost Woods, where you try to explore various floors and rooms to look for strange occurrences. The game's premise is intriguing at first, but it quickly becomes apparent that it's a very basic and poorly executed experience. The mechanics are clunky, and the game crashes frequently, which is a major issue in trying to immerse yourself in the experience. The objective of finding anomalies on each floor is clear, but the game does a poor job of guiding you on what exactly to look for. The lack of direction is frustrating, especially when the game crashes every 10 minutes, causing you to lose progress. The random, sometimes nonsensical occurrences that happen throughout the hotel are supposed to be unsettling, but instead they feel more confusing than anything else. Visually, the game doesn't do much to stand out. The hotel environment feels lifeless and uninspired, with repetitive corridors and bland textures that make it hard to feel any real tension. The sound design is also lackluster, with only the occasional creak or thud to signal something unusual. It's hard to get invested in a game that feels so empty and unfinished. The controls are awkward, and navigating the hotel is frustrating. The lack of a clear objective or meaningful narrative makes it feel like you're just going through the motions without much purpose. Horror games rely heavily on atmosphere, and this game misses the mark in this area. This is a game that feels rushed and underdeveloped. The concept could have been interesting, but poor execution, frequent crashes, and a lack of direction made it hard to recommend. There are far better anomaly-based horror games out there, and this one doesn't come close to delivering the scares it promises. Still, with a little work, I feel like the developers could fix these issues and make it into an interesting game. Number 3. Asylum Patient Zero. Asylum Patient Zero starts with an intriguing premise. You wake up in a strange, creepy house with no memory of how you got there. The door you entered through has slammed shut, leaving you trapped in a house. Your goal is to find tapes that may explain the mystery behind your situation and the death of your friend. This game seems heavily inspired by games like Don't Knock Twice. The environment is hauntingly designed, with eerie corridors, dim lighting, and the constant feeling that something is lurking just out of sight. The atmosphere is definitely one of the game's strongest points. You uncover more about the sinister events that have taken place in the house, adding layers to the mystery that keeps you engaged. However, this game has a significant issue that drags it down. It's unfinished. After finding the first tape, players are unable to progress any further. It's clear that the game has potential, but it's not a completed project. Other players have reported similar issues, which makes it difficult to recommend this game in its current state. The puzzle mechanics are relatively simple but effective, contributing to the exploration aspect of the game. The narrative is intriguing, but the game is so unfinished it's hard to fully invest in the story when you can't progress beyond a certain point. The atmosphere and setting do a lot to create tension, but without a solid way to continue, it loses a lot of its impact. If the developers were to fix the bugs and finish the game, it could be a much stronger experience. But as it stands, it's a frustrating and incomplete horror title. Number 4. Bushside Rangers Chapter 1. Bushside Rangers is a new mascot horror game that takes inspiration from titles like Indigo Park. You play as a girl exploring this run-down Bushside Rangers nature park, a place that feels both nostalgic and unsettling. The game's atmosphere is filled with eerie details as you explore. You uncover strange occurrences that hint at something more sinister lurking in the shadows. One of these standout aspects of Bushside Rangers is its mechanics. The gameplay is smooth and enjoyable, with exploration forming at the core of the experience. The character designs are interesting and fun, adding a sense of charm to the otherwise creepy atmosphere. The soundtrack is another highlight. In fact, as proof of how much I loved this soundtrack, the developer managed to be one of my monthly top artists a while back. The fear factor in Bushside Rangers isn't overwhelming, but it's certainly present. The game builds a sense of unease as you delve deeper into the park, and the mascot creatures that roam the area are both strange and slightly terrifying. There's a constant feeling that something is watching you, and the park's run-down state adds to the sense of isolation. What really sets the game apart is the passion behind it. After speaking with the developer, it's clear that a lot of love went into this project. The attention to detail in the design, the music, and the world building all point to a developer who cares about creating an engaging experience. The first chapter leaves a lot of room for expansion, and I'm excited to see what comes next. Bushside Rangers Chapter 1 is an excellent addition to the mascot horror genre. Its blend of good design, eerie atmosphere, and enjoyable gameplay make it a standout game. While it's not a perfect game, it's definitely worth checking out, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter. Number 5. Bite-Sized Scares. Bite-Sized Scares is a collection of 5 short horror stories, each with its own plot and multiple endings. The variety in these stories is one of the game's biggest strengths. Each story has a completely different feel. The fact that each story offers multiple endings also adds replayability, encouraging players to make different choices to see how the outcomes change. The first story in the collection stands out as my personal favorite, but the other stories are equally well crafted, each with its own twist and style. Some stories are more action-oriented, while others rely on atmosphere and psychological horror to make an impact. One of the most enjoyable aspects of Bite-Sized Scares is how it blends different styles of horror. The variety of settings, characters, and plotlines keeps things fresh, so you never really know what to expect. Visually, the game uses a minimalist style that works well for its short stories. The lack of detailed environments makes the few moments of terror feel all the more impactful. The sound design is also excellent, with the atmospheric music and eerie sound effects that enhance the overall experience. Bite-Sized Scares is a fantastic compilation for anyone who loves short, impactful horror experiences. Its variety, replayability, and tight storytelling make it one of the most enjoyable games on this list. Number 6. The Third Pig. The Third Pig is an interesting take on the classic fairy tale The Three Little Pigs, combining elements of survival horror and stealth gameplay. In this game, you play as the third pig, who must use their wits and quick thinking to survive after their brothers are killed by the notorious Mr. Wolf. Hello, this is me from the future. The next section of the video was completely muted because my microphone died, so I have to re-record it. The setting of The Third Pig is a creepy abandoned version of the storybook world, with dark woods and dilapidated structures that add a chilling atmosphere to the experience. The gameplay centers around navigating through your home to escape the clutches of Mr. Wolf and his mysterious associate. It's a mix of exploration and puzzle solving, as you need to gather tools, figure out how to unlock doors, and avoid being caught by the ever-present danger. The game doesn't just rely heavily on jump scares to create horror. Instead, it's more about the dread of being discovered. However, the game's biggest hurdle for me was the use of tank controls, which I personally struggle with. These controls make movement difficult and distract from the game's overall experience. For players who are more comfortable with this style of gameplay, The Third Pig could be an enjoyable experience, as the puzzles and stealth mechanics are solid. But for those of us who aren't used to tank controls, it can feel like a frustrating chore to navigate the environment. Ultimately, The Third Pig is an intriguing concept with a unique twist on a classic story, but its use of tank controls and repetitive nature of its gameplay might turn off some players. It may still be worth checking out, but it's not the most accessible or polished experience out there. Number 7. Twilight Tales Hollow Store. Twilight Tales Hollow Store is a unique choose-your-own-adventure style horror game that places you in the shoes of a night shift worker at a small store deep in the forest. As you go about your shift, you'll encounter strange occurrences and must make decisions that will shape the course of the story. The game offers multiple paths and endings, making each playthrough a different experience depending on the choices you make. The atmosphere of Twilight Tales is its strongest feature. The setting is a dimly lit store surrounded by an ominous forest. The setting creates a sense of isolation and fear. The game does a good job of building tension as you work the night shift, and the feeling of being watched adds to the unease. Unfortunately, the game suffers frequent crashes that disrupt the experience. During my playthrough, the game would often freeze every few minutes, which significantly hindered my ability to enjoy the story. It's a real shame because the premise and atmosphere are intriguing. The branching narratives could have made for a very engaging horror experience if it weren't for these technical issues. In conclusion, this game has a lot of potential as a horror game. The eerie setting, creepy narrative, and unsettling atmosphere are all great strengths. However, the game's frequent crashes and lack of direction in the story hold it back from being a truly memorable experience. Number 8. Veil of Sanity. Veil of Sanity is a psychological horror game set in a dilapidated carnival. What sets Veil of Sanity apart is its sanity mechanic, which constantly pushes you to balance exploration with survival. As you explore the area, your sanity meter goes down. If it drops too low, the game starts distorting your vision and changing your surroundings. Managing sanity adds a unique layer of tension. The gameplay itself is pretty difficult. This is easily the hardest game on this list. I found myself dying constantly, often within minutes of making progress. While this might frustrate more casual players, fans of high difficulty horror games will appreciate the challenge. Despite its difficulty, the atmosphere is incredibly well done. The carnival setting is creepy, filled with clowns, flickering lights, broken rides, and haunting ambient noises. It's immersive in a way that feels like a fever dream. Overall, Veil of Sanity is a solid horror game with a creative setting and an interesting sanity mechanic. However, its difficulty curve might make some players who are more in it for the story or atmosphere not too interested in playing. If you're up for a challenge, this one is definitely worth a shot. Number 9. Haunted Hues. Haunted Hues is a charming and slightly surreal horror game that puts you in the shoes of a visitor at an art gallery run by rats. During the day, your goal is to explore the gallery and purchase artwork, all while enjoying the strange but endearing vibe of the rodent-run establishment. But once night falls, the atmosphere shifts drastically as you have to escape monsters. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, which works in its favor. There's a clear sense of humor woven into the world, especially in how the rats are characterized. That said, Haunted Hues is not without its flaws. The controls and interactions can be a little clunky. Movement feels stiff at times, and it's not always clear where you're supposed to go. The game also feels a bit short. Just as it starts to get a rhythm, it ends. It left me wanting more, not because it was incomplete, but because the concept had so much potential that wasn't fully explored. In the end, Haunted Hues is a fun little game with a fresh idea and a lot of personality. It's definitely worth a quick playthrough. It's not perfect, but it's memorable. Number 10. Masquerade the Deadpan Cry. Masquerade the Deadpan Cry is easily my favorite game on this list, which you probably already knew because I made a whole video on just this game. This narrative-driven survival horror game is a masterpiece in both sound design and storytelling. Set in a mysterious cabaret, you play as a young ballerina who has been kidnapped and forced to perform for a twisted and cruel audience. Your goal is to escape with the help of the other ballerinas, all while navigating the dangers of the cabaret and uncovering the dark secrets behind your captors. The game's atmosphere is haunting from start to finish. The cabaret is beautifully designed yet terrifying, with dimly lit corridors and eerie music that sets the tone for the entire game. The attention to detail in the environment is incredible, and the character designs from the ballerinas to the sinister figures who run the cabaret are equally impressive, adding depth to the world. One of the things I love most about Masquerade is how the game blends narrative with gameplay. The story is deeply engaging, with twists and turns that keep you on your toes. The way the game gradually reveals more about your character's past and the true nature of the cabaret is done brilliantly, creating a sense of progression and discovery that keeps you hooked. The gameplay mechanics are well designed with a mix of stealth, exploration, and puzzle solving. The controls are smooth, and the challenge of navigating the cabaret without being caught adds a layer of tension to the experience. The balance between horror and puzzle solving is perfect, with neither element overshadowing the other. This makes Masquerade feel like a complete, well-rounded horror experience that keeps you invested from beginning to end. If you would like my full review of this game, go check out this video. So after playing through 10 of the most recently added horror games on Steam, it's clear that the quality can vary. But it's also what makes this kind of experience so exciting. Some of these games were surprisingly creative, delivering unique mechanics and atmospheres I did not expect. Others fell flat due to bugs, unfinished content, or frustrating controls. Still, each game had something to offer, even if it was just an idea or a moment that stood out. What really stood out to me during this process is just how much passion is out there in the indie horror scene. Developers are experimenting with storytelling, mechanics, and environments in a way that feels fresh, even when the execution isn't always perfect. And sometimes that ambition alone is enough to make a game worth checking out. If nothing else, I hope this video helps shine a bit of light on some horror games that might have flown under your radar. Indie devs often don't get the recognition they deserve, and many of the best horror experiences out there come from creators working with limited resources but unlimited creativity. If you've liked any of the games I've talked about, consider supporting the developers or leaving a review. It really does go a long way, and thank you all so much for watching.